the music got CJ playing, and this is the loud list. Or let me start that over. I am the music god, but this is the noise report. It is too early, and my brain is apparently still somewhere south of the border. Um, we're yeah, we're just gonna go. Over here, somewhere on your screen, you're gonna see this gentleman. I had the honor of being introduced to him a few days ago, I guess it's been. Um, Very cool clothing company and some other things we're going to talk about. So, with that said, I'm going to let him introduce himself, give you a rundown of who he is, a little bit of background, and then we're just going to talk about stuff. What's up, brother? How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. First, I want to thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. My name is Brezz. I am, first and foremost, uh, I am in recovery, right? I have struggled with addiction, mental health, pretty much my entire life. Uh, I got clean on February 26th of 21, so a little over 4 years ago. And originally had worked in a warehouse for, approximately 20 years. Once I got into recovery, I kind of found purpose in life. Um, I haven't really had purpose, right? I've been kind of partying since I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And you just don't have, I didn't have, um, ambition or goals or anything. So I kind of found purpose in recovery. um I switched fields and I am now a certified peer. um
Nice.
I'm working on my CADC, certified drug and alcohol counselor. um and I've always been into you know fashion and things like that. Fashion is probably a strong word.
Right.
I just like to dress well and things.
Right.
So I was brainstorming ways of kind of talking about recovery. So in my experience, recovery was something that I didn't realize was a thing, right? I didn't realize it was possible. Um, People in my circle, people in my family, didn't really, no one removed themselves from drugs and alcohol. It was just, to this day, everyone is still in that.
Right.
So when I got connected to the recovery community, I realized that there was a whole subset of people who had the same struggles I had and were able to successfully remove themselves from that. And, learning about stigma and the vicious cycle of guilt and shame,
Mhm.
um, associated with addiction, I wanted to come up with a way to, get people talking, open up that conversation so that we can explain to people, you know, some of the misconceptions about addiction, you know,
Right.
things like, it's a moral deficiency, right? So, I had came up with the idea of making simple t-shirts. That's how it started. Um, I did a few designs. I came up with the logo. The name of my clothing company is Fourth Dimension Apparel. The name is pulled from the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, commonly referred to as the Big Book.
Right.
Um, the one of the co-founders had made a statement in the book where he was explaining his journey, and he said he was rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. Um, this was written in the 30s. So the now when people think of fourth dimension, they think of time being the fourth dimension. But what he was referring to is um, spirituality, right? Three dimensions being things we can see, touch, feel,
Uh-huh.
our physical reality, and the fourth dimension being something higher, something we can't see, essentially spirituality. So that's where the name was pulled from. And I just try to create. I do all of the designing, all of the printing. Everything is done out of my home. We're actually in my small little printing area now. Um, so I try to create designs that catch people's eye and get them to ask, like, what is that about? You know? And our tagline is spark conversations that ignite change. Um, so, I'm just all about getting conversations started, educating people, and helping people shift perspectives, whether that's someone who is still in active addiction or still struggling with mental health, helping them shift perspectives to make change, or that's someone who doesn't understand the struggles, kind of in that space of judgment or fear, helping them shift perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing, man. Like I've dealt with the mental health stuff my whole life. Um, for various reasons. Um, Addiction, not so much, a little bit. Um, when I got out of foster care and my first year at college, um, I was in my dorm room by myself for about 2/3 of the first semester by myself. And then one day I get this knock on the door and I open the door and this guy's standing there and he's like, I'm looking for Christopher. And I was like, CJ? And yeah, whatever. And he's like, I think I'm your roommate. And I'm like, okay, nice of him to give me a roommate, like freaking 6 weeks into the semester. But he comes in and first thing he says, what do you got to drink? Nothing. What do you want? He's like, you got no alcohol in here? No, I don't really drink that much. And he's like, we're gonna have to change that. And I was like, okay. So he's like, everyone just calls me Stub. Okay, nice to meet you, Stub. And he proceeds to spend the rest of the semester pretty much just being Slash at this point. Like, there's a bottle of Jim Beam in his hand every time I see him. And I'm like, just eventually I fall into it with him. I'm drinking way more than, I need to, more than I ever did partying and all of that. Decide, okay, I'm going to spend that summer working at Cedar Point. So we all go to Cedar Point, we get jobs, and July rolls around. We have this Christmas in July party, and we get fucking thrashed. Um, I remember throwing up, passing out on the couch. Um, the dude's house we're having the party at comes in and he says, look, the neighbors just called the cops. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get the fuck out of my house. I fell down the steps going to the car because I was still drunk even after throwing up. Um, between Norwalk, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. I don't remember the trip at all. Um, we when my friend pulled in at the back of Cedar Point, where the Magnum XL is in the employee area, I remember getting out of the car, looking up at the roller coaster, and thinking, "Holy shit, that thing is huge!" And then I woke up the next morning, sitting on the floor in my underwear, door of my room wide open. Metallica is just blaring on the radio. I don't remember anything between the back of the park and the front of the park. But I passed 4 security guards. Now, for those people who don't know, security guards at Cedar Point are certified Ohio police officers. Um, they have all the power that a Ohio State police officer has. So they're not just security guards. They are full functioning police officers. I passed 4 of them, showed them a Cedar Point ID that was clearly marked underaged, because the underage ones were red and the overage ones were blue. I passed 4 of them and made it to my room without any of them suspecting that I was drunk. And it was at that point I was just kind of like, okay, you know what? I might want to lay the fuck off, because pretty much all of the luck I had stored in my, little life fund, I pretty much used it the night before, of not getting arrested, not getting fired, and not dying in the process of God knows how drunk my friend was driving us back home. But I mean, it was at that point where it was sort of a shock to the system. Your brain kicks in and you think, okay, I'm way out over the edge here. And I was super lucky that I just stopped right then and there. I still drink on occasion, but I'm very good at, I will have like 1 beer. I like Red Stripe. I buy a 6-pack of Red Stripe. It lasts me for 8 months. I mean, I don't drink that much because of the fact that first taste of beer is kind of like, okay, Cedar Point. And, I'm very controlled and strict now because of it. So I can't imagine what somebody who, for whatever reason, you know, goes beyond that, goes through. Um, it's got to be terrible. And it's not something I would wish on my worst enemies. Because like I said, I remember how I felt, and I don't have good memories of it. So I can't imagine someone else being even further out over the edge than what I was. So, um, you know, it, I admire what you're doing, man, with, everything starts with a conversation, and
Yeah.
it's just not mental health, not just addiction, but everything in life starts with conversation. It starts with, I don't want to say compromise, but it starts with finding that middle ground, that common ground that we all have. Um, because, you know, if we don't learn that, okay, maybe we don't agree on this topic, but there's 10 topics in between we do, then we're going to just keep getting further and further apart. And that's where we're at as a society, man. Whether it
Yeah.
be politically or whatever,
Everything is polarized.
yeah,
Everybody, you have to be on one side of the spectrum or the other.
yeah,
Um, that's a whole flawed way of thinking. Um,
yeah.
you were talking about, so like if you want to know if you have, even in the early stages, if you have that tendency to spark like an addiction, right? There's some key like identifying factors that I was thinking about as you were telling your story. You know, your Cedar Point story, I have decades of stories like that, right?
Right.
And it never, at least for the first 20 years, right? Which is a long time. It never crossed my mind that I don't want to experience that again.
Right.
There's just something wired in my brain, whether that's, I have a strong feeling that, it has to do with, trauma
Right.
and genetics. Both my parents struggled with addiction and their parents struggled with addiction and, and so on. So, you know, there was something in me that from the first time I started drinking, right? Um, I remember I was 13 years old and my buddy's mom would go to the store for us like on a Friday night, Saturday night, and she would buy us, beer. And it wasn't
Right.
like excessive amounts of beer. Um, and she would buy us like a 6 pack of like Paul OE cans or something.
Yeah.
And I remember we would drink a few beers and my buddy would be done. He would be like, he's feeling good. There's still a few left. He's done. I would, even at that stage, drink all of what was there and still have a feeling of like, I'm not done yet. Like, I want more, no matter how bad I was feeling. So, it's just something about the way my brain is wired. Um, and obviously, that gets progressively worse.
Right.
Um, so, there was even, and then once you get so far down, once I got so far down the line, and I do my best to speak in I statements because nothing is universal. Everybody's experiences
Right.
and abilities and all of these things are unique. So, you know, once I got so far down the line, there was a long period of time where I knew it was a problem. I knew I needed to stop, you know, but for whatever reason, many reasons, I was unable to do that.
Right.
Um, so it's just one of them things, man, where it's hard for a lot of people to understand if they haven't experienced it themselves. Um, so that's why my job as a peer, as a certified peer, is so important in like the substance abuse and mental health field, because we're able to connect with people on a higher understanding. The clinicians are very important. They have a higher education. They understand the book stuff. They understand the DSM-5 and all of these things. But from the perspective of the person in treatment, they feel they're more open when a rapport is built with someone who has experienced what they're experiencing.
Hmm.
So yeah, man, it's a struggle, but if you're able to remove yourself from it for, this is why like 30-day treatment is so important,
Hmm.
because if you're able to remove yourself from accessibility and environment and kind of put some distance between your using and yourself, and the further you get away from that and the more you educate yourself on new coping mechanisms, because that's what it is. That's how I dealt with life. Things happen. I would, use a drink to escape reality. Um,
Big.
but you know, I say that, but also at the same time, I would I was drinking or getting high no matter what, right? So if I'm having a good day, well, let's have a drink. You know, if
Right.
today's a terrible day, let's have a drink.
Drink.
You know, we're going to see a movie. Well, I got to get high before we see the
Yeah.
movie. You know, we're going to eat dinner. I have to be high to eat. You know, the food is so much better when I'm high. Everything is better. You know,
Right.
and it's that instant gratification chase. Um, it caught up with me. So
It's excuse me. It's I grew up around people that drank, and I drank all through high school. Going to parties and everything, but it was never to the level of what college in Cedar Point was. I mean, I got drunk tons of times, but it was sort of like, okay, it was like high school drunk as opposed to like blackout drunk. And, we did things in high school that were way beyond the pale. Um, we, growing up in a very small town in the thumb of Michigan, with nothing but farms around. Once I got put into foster care and moved away from that, um, we would have parties and we would do things that were way out of bounds. And there's a few stories I have that are kind of like I'm glad I was able to walk away from that. Probably shouldn't have, but again, you know, it's it's nothing I'm proud of. Let me put it that way. And um, it's like you said, it's rationalizing, hey, we worked extra hard, let's have a beer. Hey, it was a short day and we got done early. Let's have a beer. And it's just you um my favorite band is Pink Floyd, as you'll notice from most of my stuff. And the one time I got to see Pink Floyd, you know, I'd never done drugs. I'd always drank, but I'd never done drugs. And all my idiot friends were like, "Come on, dude, gotta try some shrooms, man. Can't see Floyd if you're not high." And the one line that I always had was, "Look, I will drink, but I will not touch drugs." And just that, after about 30 minutes, you know, just to shut them the fuck up. And worst experience I've ever had. Um, Took the damn things like 40 minutes to kick in. We were at the concert. Part of the way through the show, David Gilmour is like, "Mama, are they gonna drop the bomb?" And the laser went past my head and just fucking everything. And I started screaming. And I was like, "Oh, fuck, it's the end of the world. They're gonna drop the bomb. We're all gonna die." And my buddies are like, so my buddy, who's this big dude, grabs me over his shoulder towards the exit, takes his shirt, pulls it up over my head. As we're coming out, I'm just kind of limp over his shoulder. State cop stops my buddy and he says, "What are you doing?" But he's the consummate stoner, never misses a beat, says, "Oh, he's epileptic. He's having a seizure." Cop turns around to get medical help, and my buddy just to the door runs and drops me in one of the vans, because we got like the old Shaggin' Wagon vans. We got like 17 of them we've brought to the Pontiac Silverdome. Ties me to the fucking bed with extension cords that they have in the van, and then goes back inside and just leaves me there. And, they tell stories to this day of, when they got back, I was talking to Scooby Doo about what the best flavor of Scooby Snacks was, and one says I was talking about peanut butter and the stars, and I hear all these different stories. I don't, I remember it partly, but again, it's a line in the sand of like, okay, I am never ever doing drugs again, because that was just a really fucking terrifying experience, bro. And um I laugh about it now because of the way it went down. But again, against my own better judgment, I should have just kept saying no. Because now I'm never going to get to see Pink Floyd again. Um, and that experience was ruined by it. But um, again, it's those little dumb moments sometimes that you know some people are lucky to walk away, some aren't. And I think that's what is the most important thing is that needs to be stressed is, if you are lucky enough to come out the other side, um, to a point like where you're at and can talk about it and help others, you know, that's a huge victory, because there are still people, some of my biggest heroes, musically and in the entertainment business, that did walk out the other side. And you know, I have a few regrets. Mother Love Bone, one of my favorite all-time bands, and Andrew overdosed on heroin, and I was hanging out with them a week before he overdosed. Super good kid, and I love him to death, and I'm still kind of haunted by the fact that we were hanging out, drinking and partying like wannabe rock stars do, and I'm here and he's not. And he was the one that had the talent. He was the one that had labels beating his door down. He was the one that people talk about. And I know I shouldn't feel guilty about that, but there's a part of me that all the bad shit I've done in the world, and I've done some really, really terrible shit as a teenager and adult. You kind of have that, why did I get to survive and he did? And I hate feeling that way. But
Yeah,
it just
I
kind
think
of
that's
is
a
what it is. You
natural.
can't change it.
Yeah,
Um
I think that's a natural emotion. It's a part of grief, right? It just kind
yeah.
of it's just part of the program, with all that stuff. Um, yeah, I think you know, the the rise in opioid usage and the opioid epidemic
Yeah.
is, I've learned in recovery to try to find positives in every situation,
Right.
even the most terrible situations, right? Um,
Yeah.
and while the opioid epidemic is at an, it's at an all-time high, um, this isn't a new problem,
Right.
I personally lost my father to a heroin overdose, and this was in '94. So you know, it's just gotten, with the whole Sacklers and the medication, and
Yeah.
you know, it starts off for a lot of people with medication, um, and then it grows, and you can't afford the medication anymore. You can't find the medication anymore, and it goes to other substances.
Right.
Um, so it's a slippery slope, and you're right. It's super important that we talk about this stuff, and that we just let people know um, that if you are willing to go through the hard work
Hmm.
of, um, it's all about internal work. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, um, what a lot of people don't understand about addiction is it's not necessarily has anything to do with the substance or the alcohol or whatever it may be, right? Or the
Mhm.
sex or the porn or love. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's about the internal. Um, we have a hole inside of us that we're trying to fill
Right.
with external sources. So this is why people remove themselves from drugs and alcohol. They may technically be clean and sober, but I would argue they are not necessarily in recovery. And
Right.
what I mean by that is they're still seeking to fill that hole. They're still looking whether that's, people get clean and sober and then they work excessively to fill that hole with material possessions, or they spend 18 hours a day on a video game and try to fill with that, or they buy something in excess or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's about internal work, man. We have to do the healing. We have to look inside and figure it out. And that's why the 12 steps were so like instrumental in my life, because the 12 steps are designed for healing. With the fourth and fifth step, um, kind of writing down all of your resentments and angers and um, traumas and things like that. And then the fifth step, you're sharing it, you're speaking it out loud, you're getting that, you're letting that stuff out. Um, and then also this, like what I'm doing right now, is part of the 12 steps because I am sharing the message, right? You know, my job as someone in recovery is to share my message and to give people what was given to me. So yeah, I'm so passionate about that, man. It really has become, you know, to first me to come from someone who never had any goals, never had any purpose, to now being someone who wakes up every day and does so many different things to try to be a positive impact on the world. It's just it's an amazing feeling, man.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit because I had a couple things I want to touch on. One, the clothing line, fourth dimension. Talk about that a little bit because I'm like you. I love not necessarily dressing nice, but I love graphic arts. I love poster design. It's like one of my favorite things, and I love like t-shirt designs. This
Yeah.
one here, I know people probably can't see it, but it's one we designed for a buddy's band, and I love like t-shirts and beanie hats and different things, stickers, um, like this that I love the art part of the graphic design. And I noticed in some of your pictures, man, like you have a picture with Merc, and I fucking love that dude. Um, so I want to touch on that a little bit too after you talk about the clothing
Yeah, man,
thing.
we can certainly get into a little bit of music talk.
Yeah,
You know,
but
I,
but
I
tell them where to find where that. Tell them where the website is and where to find the clothing stuff and all of that.
yeah, for sure.
But,
So our website is fourthdimensionapparel.com. That is the number four DIMENSION. And we're also on mainly Facebook and Instagram. We do have a TikTok, but I'm a little older and I'm not too familiar with TikTok. I do try to get on there occasionally, but it's really not
it's a
my cup
new
of tea.
frontier, bro. Like,
Yeah, but
yeah,
this is all this we are. I say we, but it's essentially me and my wife, of course, being my wife, helps me with a few things, but um this is a very small operation where the goal isn't necessarily to retire off of selling t-shirts and hoodies and
Right.
hats and that. um Really, I mean, the goal is to get the message out.
Exactly.
You know and you were talking about, I use the term, I like to dress nice, but not nice in the sense that
Right.
in a fashion field would think is nice. I have a feeling we are kind of from the same era. And I'm graphic T-shirts and band shirts and
Yeah.
things like
Of
that.
hundreds.
Right. So that's always been part of my thing. So that's kind of where that just naturally aligned with, which is why I thought, what's a better way to get a message out than put it on a t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that is my my niche, I guess you would say. So it started out with just t-shirts. We did a few designs, and it just kind of started growing from there. We recently released some snapback hats.
Oh, nice.
We have a pair of slides that's available on the website as well. Um, and another important thing I wanted to mention was, we donate a portion of all of our sales to, I'm located in Delaware. So at the current moment, we donate a portion of all sales to recovery organizations in Delaware. Um, so, you know, just trying to do good with, whatever we create, in all sense, whether that's financial or that's educational.
Right.
So the designs you'll see when you go on there, some of them are a little edgy, right? And that's intentional because
Right.
that catches people's eye and that makes them say, like, what is that all about? Like, why are you wearing
Right.
that? And now that opens up that channel for us to speak about these things. That's essentially the whole concept of the company. So yeah, man. It's it's a growing thing. I have plans to expand our product line even more.
Nice.
Because right now it is majority t-shirts. There are a few designs that we have available on hoodies. And like I said, just in May we released the slides, and April we released the hats. I have some plans to release a few more items coming up here soon. And we'll continue to release new designs as we progress. But
That's awesome, man. I will definitely be checking out the site and getting some because I love a good. I have a buddy who creates t-shirts, obviously, and he does some pretty edgy things. He's he's done a lot of QR code ones recently. And the cool thing about the QR code thing is, depending on who you're doing them for, you can kind of put any message on them. And
yeah,
they've done some that were very over the top, some that are hilarious. My favorite one is it's a QR code, and when you scan it, it does the Rickroll thing, the Rick Astley thing. That's my favorite one because like I've seen him wear that to shirt, and I've seen people walk up behind him and scan it, and just as soon as it pops up, they're like, "Really?" Just walk away, and you just laugh, because it's such a simple design, but it's sort of a universal thing, the whole Rickroll thing, so it's funny, but um he's had people literally scan it and then be like, dude, where do I get this shirt? Like, and then he
Yeah, I
just
was going
hands
to say
it.
that's
Yeah.
that's genius guerrilla marketing, right? Because
Yeah.
you either scan it and you're going to be highly offended and never think about it again, or you scan it and you're going to say, "Wow, now I have to get one to do this to the next person," right?
Right. you
So
know
it's
um
actually pretty smart.
yeah, I mean, he does some really basic stuff, man, but he does some really fun stuff too. And I love that. He's kind of like you. He's not like a major scale guy. I mean, he does most of his stuff he does is for bands. 95% of what he does is he prints stuff for like hard rock bands and metal bands and different things. Custom orders, more or less. But he's just sort of started branching out and said, hey, I'm gonna just do some of my own stuff just to um see how it flies. And like you said, it's sort of guerrilla style almost. um let's talk about music, man. I gotta ask about the picture with Merc. And I also noticed you commented on Apathy's new record, man, and on one of his posts. And
That
those are
should be
two of
here.
my favorite people, bro. Like, um,
That should be here. So I'll say I am again from the older generation. I um, still buy physical copies. My Apathy Mom and Dad album should be here today. I got an email this morning saying it was out for delivery. So I've listened to it through Bandcamp, but that's because I simply couldn't wait to hear it. But I don't stream music. I don't own a I don't own a streaming account. Like I've never used Pandora or Spotify. I don't even you could open that app and I wouldn't know what it was. And that's not like I don't do well with change, I guess, if I'm being honest. I prefer my music front to back, you know. I when I get this Apathy album, I'll put the CD in my car and I don't skip songs.
yeah,
I don't remove that CD will stay in there for, depending on how much I enjoy it. Which with it being Apathy, I'm sure it will be there for several months.
yeah,
But the Merc, we went and seen Merc in Reading, PA, at
right.
Reverb on when was that? I think that was just the beginning of the month, or just a few weeks ago. And that was my first time seeing Merc live. Um, they are for me, those two artists are connected because
Right.
um I found Mercules through a feature that he was on. Empathy and Self-Titled had a
Yes.
song in 2013 with Mercules, and Mercules was a young kid at that time.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered Mercules. I actually spoke to Mercules because I had a chance to meet him after the show.
Mhm.
He's a super humble guy.
Yeah.
He actually stayed after the performance. He went to his tour bus. He washed up. He changed. He came back into the venue and met with everyone. No meet. He had a meet and greet prior, but this was just out of the kindness of his heart. He was super
Right.
humble. His bodyguard wasn't happy about it, but he came into the venue and just met with everyone. And I asked him about when that song was, and I was telling him like that's where I discovered you. And he had kind of, I don't want to say he forgot about it, but he was reminded about it, and he was like, "Wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time." That was in like 2013.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Mercury's I am in terms of genres of music. I am very diverse. Growing up, um, my parents listened to a lot of like Southern rock and Bob Seger.
Holy
My
shit.
name, yeah, my Bob Seger is probably one of my favorite artists of all time.
Dude,
Um,
my dad, and people that know me know, I tell this story all the time, but it's literally true. My dad will physically fight you over Bob Seger. Like if
yeah,
you walk up to my father and say Bob Seger is an asshole, my dad will like fight you over that. I don't know what it is about Bob Seger, but just my dad, who is not a violent man, he's been a truck driver for 55 years. This is his 55th year as a truck driver. He will fucking fight you over Bob Seger, bro. And to me, it's funny. Like, I don't have a good relationship with my dad, but I tell that story. Like, it's been the one constant thing in my life. It's my love for Bob Seger, is because when my mom and dad divorced, dad got custody. And for the first, until I was almost 7 years old, we didn't own a house. We lived in that truck and we just traveled. And, there were no computers, no TVs, no cell phones, no video games, any of that in 1973, 1974. So I had books and I had music. And I had a constant all the time, the truck, the radio was always on. And it was Bob Seger, Marshall Tucker, Blackfoot. Um, it was the Doobie Brothers and Bad Company and, you know, Triumph and shit like that, that I grew up with these bands. Um, and then I've gone through where, I was introduced to this here and I was introduced to this here and I was introduced to this here. And now you see, you got Prince next to Metallica, next to Bob Marley, next to Pink Floyd, next to Judas Priest. Uh, so it's musically, I am, you know, just all over the map. But there's certain things that I sort of gravitate towards. And the biggest thing being message, especially if it has to do with mental health of some kind. I don't want to say mental health, but just that sense of being. So people like Vinny Paz, Apathy, Diabolic, Blue
oh,
October, Webby, Merc, Dax, people who King Eso, people who really have that content that can hit you in the feels, man. Hobson, those are the ones that I gravitate towards because it kind of has that content that you relate to. The funny thing is, people will talk about Eminem, and I'm from Detroit. I'm not an M fan. And it's not that I hate M. I don't relate to anything M says. I just don't. Like, he's never said anything lyrically that hit me in my feels. But when I hear um Vinny, Vinny especially, um, you know, when I hear Moving Train by Vinny, or Can't Find Love in a Moving Train, whatever the name of that track is, that's a song that's like,
is happiness just a word?
yeah, yes. Actually, I think that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
The shit that he does with Army of the Pharaohs, when, and I would say this all day long. People talk about Wu-Tang, people talk about D12, this group, this group, this group. I will put Army of the Pharaohs against any group in the world and put money on them heads up. Because you can talk about who you want, but man, you put Vinny, App, and Self-Titled, just those three of the 6 or 7 in that group, just those three alone, they're lethal, man. Like, the shit that Self-Titled says sometimes is just like, wait a minute. You just say what the fuck I think he said. Like, Self comes up with some crazy shit, and you never hear people talk about it.
Yeah, it, it's almost wild to me. Like, I know that Army of the Pharaohs and Vinny and Jedi Mind Tricks, like, I know that they are well known.
Hmm.
But just you being from Detroit, because I live close to
Hmm.
Philadelphia, um, it still kind of catches me like, wow, like people out there know. But,
Yeah.
you know, um, there's people in Sweden,
Yeah.
who listen to them. But back to like my music growing up. So a little fun fact for you. Um, my name is Breeze. I was actually named after the Leonard Skinner song "Call Me the
Only
Breeze."
breeze.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that is where my father got my name from. Um, he just chose to try to be unique with the spelling, but
Awesome.
um, but yeah, my name comes from that. That song, um, I love that song not just because of my connection to it, but the piano solo in that song is crazy, like
Yeah.
insane. Um, you were talking about connection to like lyrics and stuff. That is definitely why I gravitate nowadays, pretty much all of my adult life. I've kind of gravitated towards, hip hop. Hip hop is a majority of what I listen to. And it all started, late 80s, early 90s. I was listening to, it was like the grunge era. Um, I was listening to Nine Inch Nails and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Smashing Pumpkins and all of this stuff. But then right around the time my father passed, um, Big released Ready to Die. And you know, the Chronic had already came out, and my older brother was listening to that. Um, and Doggy Style had came out, and
Nice.
I liked it. But when Ready to Die came out, a friend of mine was like, "You've got to listen to this record," and I was like, well, at that time I was, you're young, so it's like, well, I
Right.
don't really listen to hip hop like that. I'm
Right.
more of this is what I do. Um, so I listened to it, and that album changed everything for me. Um,
Yeah.
I was able to listen to the lyrics and um, have a deeper connection with them. Um, all of the rock and the metal and like I was a big Metallica fan. I still am a
Nice.
fan of earlier Metallica stuff, and Justice for All and stuff like that. But
Yes.
the hip hop, it was more lyric. Like I was more connected to the lyrics in
Hmm.
hip hop rather than metal. So you know, Big had a song on there called "Suicidal Thoughts,"
Yeah.
and that song is essentially a mental health song.
Right.
And I didn't know it at the time, but I it resonated with me so deeply on like those emotions, those feelings of like I'm not good enough and all of that. So that kind of started my journey, man, and I've just been engulfed by hip hop
Yeah.
since that point. Eminem, you were talking about Eminem. So I do connect with lyrics, right? But for me, there's two sides to that. Like I connect with like a relatable side, but I also connect with the artistic side. So for me, the Slim Shady LP came out.
Hmm.
I listened to that fanatically because it
Hmm.
was different, it was edgy, and
Right.
his wordplay is just his the way he put syllables together and things like that was just unique. And then the Marshall Mathers LP I listened to. Those two albums for me still have replay value. Um, the stuff after that kind of isn't something that I like go back and listen to. But when it came out, um, I was listening to it. But once like the internet, I would say for
Yeah.
me, 2009-ish is like when I really got like a solid internet connection and a good computer, and I could branch out and start finding other
Right.
music. That's when things changed for me because it was no longer what's on the radio, what everybody else is listening to. I was
Yeah.
able to expand. That's kind of where I found like Army of the Pharaohs and you know, Army of the
Smooth.
Pharaohs. We're talking about the members. You're talking about the members of Army of the Pharaohs. Apathy is probably my favorite. But
Yeah.
there's also another artist that I don't hear anyone talk about. His name is Reef the Lost Cause.
Reef
And
is.
Reef
I've
is
interviewed Reef.
insane,
Reef is fucking amazing.
bro. And his live performances,
Yeah.
nuts. Like
And
his live performances,
the shit he
he
does
has
with his
so much
son,
energy.
the shit he does
Yeah,
with his son being autistic, bro, that's
yeah,
like right here, bro.
yeah. And
Like,
his music is like super emotional, and it's
yeah,
like honest, and it's not you know um but yeah. So like I listen to a lot of artists that at least people that I know don't know who they are. You know what I mean?
right.
People
Yeah,
when people ask me like, well, what do you listen to? And I name artists, they're like, who is that? You know what I mean?
right.
Um, but that's because I've kind of evolved from like when I was young, I would listen to things because everyone else listened to it. And when you listen to something long enough, you start to kind of enjoy it.
Right.
Now I'm at a stage where I find music, I listen to it, and I either connect with it or I don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I found a new artist from the Mercury show. Um, there's a guy out of Texas that opened up for Mercury's, and he said that he opened up for Mercury's in Texas. He met Mercury's, and Mercury's invited him to go on the rest of the tour with him. His name is Creechy. I have to send you his info, but I bought a physical album of his at the show, and that's what I have in my car right now. Um, Super dope, man. He's in recovery as well, and um, his music sonically is um a lot less like lyrical hip hop and more kind of like Mercury style, where it's
Mm,
like singing and melodies and things like that.
right.
But super dope artist.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of stuff that people kind of are like, who the hell is that? Um, some I've listened to years before they ever um I promoted a show in 2005 in Little Rock, Arkansas, when I lived in Little Rock. It was Haystack, David Ray, Smo, and Jelly Roll. And I told everyone in 2005 that guy is going to be massive. He's going to be king of the world. Now, I thought it was going to be in hip hop, obviously, but I just knew from meeting him, his personality and who he was as a person. There's just no fucking way that Jelly was not going to be a star. Like his personality is just too damn big. He's too good of a guy. And people think with Jelly, oh, he's just this or this. He is exactly what you see. There's no facade to that dude. Like Jason is just Jason, and Bunny's just Bunny, and they're two oddball people who met in the weirdest of ways, who probably should have never been together, but it works for them, man. And another one is Nems. I've been listening to Nems for for a decade. And when people, who is that? Oh, it's Nems. Who the fuck is Nems? A Bing Bong. Oh yeah, I know Bing Bong. You know, so you say Bing Bong, they know. But if you say Nems, no fucking idea who Nems is. You know, and I like Nems just because Nems, he's outrageous. You know, you never know what Nems is gonna say. Like he just says some shit just to say it, I think. Just
he's like the essential like shock value kind of
yeah. Like, you
thing.
know, like drop kicking your dog and shit like that. I think Nems says some shit. But then I love like Locksmith is another one that I really love because Locksmith,
Oh,
you know,
you
he's a
you
smart motherfucker. Like,
you are I gotta be honest, you're impressing me
um,
with your name drops here. I don't know
it's,
if I know anyone who is familiar with this amount of artists that I'm into.
um, and
Yeah.
the here's one that almost nobody knows this one unless you're like a real hip hop head, and she's probably my favorite hip hop artist, and that's Ciroc. Um,
Yeah, I haven't listened to her extensively. I know who she is.
yeah, just one of the sweetest women, sweetest ladies. Like I've never got to interview her. I would love to. She's commented on a bunch of stuff I posted, and you know, it's like I admire the fuck out of her because she's sort of like the female version of Locksmith, man. Like she's so damn intelligent with what she says. It's she measures it in a way where it has maximum impact, but it's not really said in a way that's meant to be controversial or whatever. It's just her, it's kind of like her version of what she sees the world as. And I love that, man. Immortal Tech, I listen to Immortal Tech a lot. Um, Back on the mental health thing, Chino
Yeah.
is for my all time, for you know, people make their GOAT list. My number one will always be KSR1. KSR1 was the very first hip hop artist I ever got into. Uh, Dude moved into a hall in college across the street, and I come back from class one day and he was just banging. And I was like, yo, that, you know, that is whoop whoop, it's the sound of the police. And I was like, oh, that's kind of dope sounding, man. What the fuck is that? And I knocked on his door, and this little black kid opened the door, and I was like, yo, what is that, bro? Like, that's fucking. He's like, well, you don't know KSR1? And I was like, obviously not. And he's like, you listen to hip hop? And a little bit. And he goes, Public Enemy, Ice-T, Too Short, Ant Banks. He introduced me to all of that. So I became real good friends with this kid, and a lot of my early hip hop knowledge, X Clan, Paris, was all through this little this kid in college, man, and branched out from there. But KSR1 will always be my number one, but you can debate amongst yourselves, you know, Rakim, Eminem, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, yada, 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 yada. But a name that I almost never see in the top five, and he is my number two, is fucking Chino. And Chino was just lyrically, man, there was nobody like fucking Chino. Guys, he was a fucking assassin with words, man. And it was, first time I heard Chino, I was like, oh shit. Like he's serious. Like this motherfucker's putting words together that I wouldn't even have thought of putting in a song, metal or otherwise. And he's rhyming it with other shit in a way that was like, that's like deep, but it's ferocious lyrically. And then his, you know, he'd have like songs where the music itself was you know, Bible Black. The music was just as ferocious as the lyrical content. Um, and Chino, man, like everybody knew Chino's Demons.
Mhm.
Was so when that happened, wasn't shocked by it, but it hurt, man, because it was like I wish there would have been a way to save that dude, because that's a to me that's a massive, massive loss to hip hop, man. And
Yeah.
for his
And
kids to have to go through that and have to suffer that, and that's why I said some don't get to come out the other side. Um, the demons are just too much, and to this day, man, Chino, lyrically, musically, he is my biggest influence. Um, and everything I write, everything I try to be, I just look at it this way. I'm trying to be 1/100th as good as what Chino was. Um, because that's the dude to me. That's the measuring stick for me. For some, it may be Jay-Z, whoever, minus Chino. And I want to have that punch, that impact, that snap that he had, that ferociousness, that fearlessness. Um, so that's where I'm at. But again, I love Metallica, I love Bob Marley, I love country and Americana and bluegrass and all of that. But it sort of all comes back to the impact. Blue October. Justin is
I have
another
a
one.
I have a buddy that is a huge, huge Blue October fan.
Yeah, because
And
Justin was
he's
in a terrible place.
yeah,
And
he shared some of the music with me. I haven't put like a ton of time into listening to it. But you know, I watched some of Justin's story and like, the background behind all of that.
yeah,
Um, Super inspiring, man.
yeah,
Um,
that's again, that's another one of my heroes, bro. Like on my bucket list of people to meet, he is number one on my list. Like, I want him to see this. I want him to, and both of these, like, I got the Blue October one, and I've got the Gorilla.
yeah, I was wondering if that's what that was.
Yeah, that's the yeah. And Nems has seen this. I actually got to see Nems live about 4 days after I got this. It was him and Mac Lethal toured together, and I don't give a shit about Matt personally. But Nems was there, and I was going to see Nems one way or another because, and my buddies that went with me, he's just going to talk shit to you, right? It's the whole fucking point. That's the whole point. I want him to talk shit to me, bro. Like,
Right.
like,
If he don't throw it, don't you ever
yeah,
disrespect me.
like, why would you want someone to talk shit? Dude, it's like meeting Don Rickles and then Don not fucking insulting you. Like, it's just the whole point is to have him talk shit to you. Like, that's what Nems does. It's like being a fucking blonde chick with big tits meeting Andrew Dice Clay and Dice not commenting on you having nice tits, like the whole fucking point is that
Dice,
whether it's offensive or not isn't the point. It's what he does, and these I wear these on my hands because I want people to see them. I don't want them covered up. Like, I have tons of tattoos, but I don't want these ones covered up because much like your shirts, I want people to ask me, what is that? What is that? What does it mean? And I've got to tell Nems what this was. I want to tell Justin what this is and why I reversed the colors. Because, Justin's has the red heart with the black cross. And I reversed mine for a very particular reason. So I want to be able to tell Justin, you were my inspiration, but there's a second layer to this. And it started with you, but I wanted to build it bigger, or I wanted, another layer to it. And I want him to understand that, like what you're doing, like what other people are doing, there are people that are listening. There are people that have been on the edge, and because of this, what they've done, because of their story, because of their success, I've walked away another day. And again, my thing isn't so much the addiction as it is the mental health. I struggle with it. I'm just, I got, you know, hands full of these fucking things I have to pick every day just to sadly function on a normal, or what society says is a normal level. And I hate it. I hate taking pills, but if I don't,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on the most wanted poster somewhere, because it's just, you know doctors say, well, it's biological, or it's a chemical imbalance, or it's this or that. And you're kind of like, is that really what it is? There's a lot of trauma involved with it too. And if I could heal this trauma, like you said, would I need the medicine if I could really get to the core of
Well,
all of
see
this
it.
shit with my dad and all of this shit?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's both, right?
Yeah,
When we experience trauma and we have all of these things happen and these experiences, there's a biological change. Our brain literally rewires itself. Um, and a lot of that has to do with like protection, right?
yeah.
Um,
Self-preservation.
there's a lot of my childhood that I don't remember. I remember like specific things, and they tend to be really good moments or really bad moments,
Yeah,
but a majority of it is gone. And that's because the trauma, my brain kind of chose to block that out.
yeah.
But there's a lot of rewiring that happens in your brain when you experience large amounts of trauma. And, um, you know, through the healing process and through learning how to deal with upcoming issues and life in general, we are able to slowly rewire our brain. So it is both what you said, like it is the trauma, the experience, as well as a biological component. Um, but yeah, and I don't claim to have reached the pinnacle of any of this.
Right.
Like there is no finish line.
Yeah.
Because you start to work on something and other things are uncovered or new experiences happen.
Right.
It's a lifelong process, man.
Yeah.
But
One road leads to 1,000. Someone
yeah,
someone said that to me once, that when you start, how did he put it? When you start on this journey, you'll discover that one road leads to 1,000.
sure.
And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you'll understand later. And you know, years down the road, I completely understand that, yeah, as you go down here, other stuff will open up. And
Yeah.
it's really like an endless,
One
almost
leads to
um,
two, two leads
yeah,
to four, four,
yeah.
leads to
I
eight,
mean,
and
it's,
so on.
if you think about it, like your brain is wired neurologically, all the links that you would see like on a 3D graphic, that's literally what you're dealing with, is just one synapses leading to multiple others. And it's really a crazy thing, man. Um,
Sure.
brother, thank you so much for coming on here, man. We are definitely going to do this again. Uh, I have, I, I, I've had so much fun talking with you, man.
For
And
sure, man. It was unexpected that you would have that vast knowledge of like what a lot of people would categorize as like quote unquote underground hip hop. Yeah,
it's not even scratching the surface, bro.
yeah.
I mean, I've
One
got
thing
whole
you didn't
collections
mention, I
of
got to throw out there, RA.
R.A. the Rugged Man, yes.
Yeah,
Um,
RA. I'm a huge
Snow
RA fan.
Goons,
Yeah,
LP, um, Reef to Lost Cause, like you said, Esoteric. Um, this just there's a bunch of them from Detroit that I always mention that Again, I will put up with Aztec the Barfly. Um, if you've never heard Aztec, dude, Aztec is Vinny and Apathy in one person.
Really?
Like, yeah,
Yeah,
like
you'll have to
Aztec.
send me his, you'll have to send me his info. I don't think I've heard of
Um,
him.
yeah. There's a group here in Detroit called Foul Mouth Records, and it has Aztec the Barfly, Bang Belushi, Fat Father, King Gordy. I know everybody knows
I
King
know.
Gordy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard King Gordy through like
But he
Bizarre.
has King Gordy, has Foul Mouth as a producer, and then Bang Belushi. Bang Belushi is basically Bizarre if Bizarre actually had talent.
Yeah.
Instead of just being a fat, stuttering piece of shit that he is. Um, Aztec is they call Aztec, they call him the bar bully. Because this motherfucker has bars, just like he is lethal, bro. Why Aztec has not exploded beyond Detroit, I don't know. But I've introduced so many people to Aztec, and when they hear Aztec, they're like, "How the fuck is this dude not known?" Because he's literally he's Apathy and Vinny in one person with the fucking lyrical style of Chino. Like he just says shit sometimes to say shit, and you're like, "Ooh, that was a fucking nasty line." Um, he has one line where he's talking about his fifth grade math teacher. Um, and he says, my life is like my fifth grade math problem. I'm a fucking problem. And it's just like, oh shit. Like it's just, but he says shit, dude. And he says it with that, that Army of the Pharaohs snow goons type of production, that big, boom bap style, man. And, again, Aztec is one of them dudes who, if I could ever start a label, Aztec would be one of the first people I would fucking sign, because the dude is just a fucking, you know, I mean, he is nasty, bro. Like, I'll put him against anybody. I seriously would. Like, and people ask me, if you could form a hip hop supergroup, who would it be? And I don't even have to hesitate. Apathy, Vinny, Aztec, and fucking Merc would be the four that I would put together for just the very reason of they have individual styles, but their styles are also very similar. And
Yeah.
I think the four of them would write a record that would just rip a hole in the time continuum, man. Because they would get in the studio together and start rhyming. And then one of them would be like, okay, this motherfucker just said some shit. Now I got to say something more outrageous. And then Vinny's be like, oh, I got to say some shit even more outrageous. And then Merc's going to be back there, be like, okay, you know, now I got to fucking really bring that fucking early Merc shit. And the four of them, I think, would just, you know, it would almost be like when M and Buster were doing that collab together, and they kept, going back and forth because Buster's like, okay, I can't let him out rap me. I got to go more. And then M's like, I got to go more. And then Buster's, I got to go more. So, I mean, that's literally what you would get with those four. Anyways, we're going to wrap this up. I know you got to get ready and get to work and all that.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on here. Any last words, any uh, words of wisdom, anything else you want to kind of throw out there that I might have missed?
Um, so anyone watching, please check out our social media, fourthdimensionapparel.com. That's the number 4, THDIMENISON. M and SION. I think I said that backwards. And also our website, which is also www.fourthdimensionapparel.com. And then, if you're struggling with mental health, addiction, don't be afraid to reach out for help. It's never too late. There are people who are willing to help and can guide you down the right path. So be vocal, speak up, ask for help. I really appreciate you, CJ.
Absolutely, brother. As always, you know what we end this with? Be well, treat each other with kindness, and remember that music heals.
Absolutely.